Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Grace of a Military Child in Life podcast. Military families are not like your traditional family. They are strong, brave, resilient, and some of the most incredible people I know. My name is Gracie, a U.S. Army brat, and I am your host. I am honored to be able to give military family members like myself a place for them to share their stories and experiences in the military life. Stay tuned for this week's guest. Hi, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Grace of a Military Child in Life. Today, I'm here with Miranda, who is an Air Force spouse. So, Miranda, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Hi, Gracie. Thanks for having me. I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you. So, tell us what it's like for you being a military spouse.
It is, well, first off, there's ups and downs to being a military spouse. And I'm sure that most anybody that is a military spouse or knows one will say, yep, that resonates with me when I say it. So I will say that obviously ups and downs. So great thing. We get to go all over the world. I personally have not been out of the United States with my husband, with his job. He is a U-2 pilot. And we have not been out of the United States. We've stayed here. We've been to four different bases. But they all have been different. We have disliked things about each one of them, but we try and we rap and we enjoy as much as we can about each of the bases that we've been to and the people and the community as a whole. It's different. This is definitely a lifestyle that I always tell people. I'm like, it is not for everybody. Right. I had a relationship with my husband prior to being married to him for 7 years, and we were long distance the entire time. He went to Purdue University, and I was back in Buffalo, which that's where we're originally from. And it was a struggle. There were some years, I'm going to say years, that we would only see each other one time. So jumping into this type of lifestyle to me was a breeze because I was used to being away from him for long periods of time and being able to really grasp onto how I wanted my lifestyle, how I wanted things to be.
And that was the hardest thing. Like the hardest thing, I was in a long distance relationship for like a year and I saw him like multiple times throughout the year. But I will say like, it is hard. And I couldn't imagine like being away from someone and having that long distance relationship for 7 years and then having to live with someone after that. Like it's a shock both ways. But you know how to, for me, the hardest part was to handle myself when he was gone and what I was going to do, during those periods when he was away. And, once you figure out how to live your life on your own, it's golden.
Right. Yeah. I'll say it's different just because I was around family when I lived back home. So it was like, I always had something to do. There was always someone to turn to. When he deployed for the first time and he was gone for 6.5 months, I was working, yes. And that kept me busy for the most part. But I was still new to the area. I didn't have friends. I wasn't married or engaged to him yet. So I wasn't allowed to go on base. I didn't have any of the spouse friends or the connection there. So it was difficult in a sense, but I was able to really be around other people that weren't necessarily in the military community, but they understood. They were like, if you need me for anything, I'm here. If there's something that, you want to go do and you don't want to go do it alone, let me know. There was always a great thing about being around other people, that there was a community. Usually when you have a base there, the community around that base knows what it's like.
It's like military USA everywhere outside of the base. It's the best feeling ever.
So, it makes it a lot easier. And like I said, I'm an introvert. So I did not really want to push myself out there to be around other people or to learn about different aspects of the life, but I had to push myself. I know that there are several spouses out there that I've personally known that are like, I just don't like this and I don't want to be out there. And I shouldn't have to do this. No, you don't have to, but it's going to help you in the long run, physically, mentally, emotionally, being away from your spouse, because at some point you're going to be away from them. I mean, it is what it is. That is the lifestyle.
Yeah.
Yes. So I will say, being in the long distance relationship helped me on that part, but it was definitely a learning curve to have to be away from family and, not have them to rely on for every single thing, even just, going to the movies, a simple thing of being with somebody else and going to the movies. I went with my work friends because those exactly were it, work friends. I didn't know anybody outside of work.
Right.
So it's a learning curve. And if you aren't able to want to do that or to push yourself, this type of community, this type of lifestyle, you're going to constantly be butting heads with it, no matter what.
Yeah, it's definitely, even if you're not willing to just put in the smallest bit of effort, like I keep seeing, I don't know if it's going viral or what, but I keep seeing that like picture, and it's of progress. It's trying to show progress. And so the top line shows a square kind of trying to push and move forward. And then it shows a square with like rounded edges, and then more of a circle. And then the circle just rolls right along because the circle has, you've gone through so much molding that you can just roll right along. And that's the military life. If you don't mold yourself to it, then you're kind of stuck and you're not going to be moving.
No. And I totally understand when these spouses complain about situations or are going through a hardship, whatever the case is.
It's inevitable. Yeah.
Yes. It is going to happen. And we call it Murphy's,
Murphy's Law.
Murphy always happens when, our spouse is TDY or they're deployed,
Right.
So in some instances, they're going and they're away for a whole year because they've been put at a different base overseas, and you're home, with the kids or, working, a certain type of job that you obviously want to keep.
Right.
It's not easy. It is not. And a lot of people on the outside, civilians, they'll say, you knew this was coming. You signed up for this. I know it rubs me the wrong way when people say that. And I know that other spouses are like, they kind of like roll their eyes. They're like, yeah, signed up for it, but
yeah, sure.
You love your spouse, regardless. It would be with anybody. And a firefighter's wife, a police officer's wife,
Right.
any of them, you signed up for it, your spouse is injured on the job, whatever the case is. Yeah. You didn't sign up for that. You signed up to love them for the rest of your life is what you did. It shouldn't matter what the job is. It shouldn't matter what they do. So when people say that, that's what I always correct them with. No, I didn't sign up for this. I signed up to love my husband for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And, you roll with the punches with any type of marriage, any type of military lifestyle, you roll with the punches. That's that's part of life.
Yeah.
And exactly what you said, you have to mold yourself into what you are. Same thing with a military spouse. You have to mold yourself into that. Whether you want to accept it or not, you have to.
Yeah. And it's kind of, you said that, you signed up for this. And I have seen, you mentioned the injured, like, you never know what could happen. You could lose your loved one. You could be a Gold Star family. And, you sign up, not signing up for anything. You don't sign a contract. You don't do anything.
I don't hold my husband's rank at all.
No.
I am
love someone.
Yes. I have been with my husband now for 17 years. I knew him when he was an ROTC at Purdue University, trying his best just to keep his head above water in, student life and trying to get a pilot slot. I mean, he is literally living out his dream. He dreamed to be an Air Force pilot, and that is what he is.
And see, it's so cool to see, somebody you love, whether that be your kids, your parents, your spouse, a best friend, that's the fun part of life and, relationships as a whole, is seeing somebody have a dream and then be able to live it out. Yes. And that's what love is.
To be honest with you, I get the question all the time of, well, what do you do? I'm a stay-at-home mom. I used to say, I'm just that word, just a stay-at-home mom. I do a lot. And I think any stay-at-home parent would know what that takes. I was in the workforce, and I will tell you, any day, any moment of the day, that being a stay-at-home mom is 1,000 times more. It's just difficult. It's a lot more work than a regular job. Now, if you do both of those, I understand that's a lot. That's a lot to take on. You've got spouses that do that. They're stay-at-home parents, and they have to look at the childcare aspect of it.
And military childcare is so hard to find.
I will tell you, since moving to California, we just found a babysitter. We've been here, just found a babysitter. They're going to be moving in July, sadly.
Yeah.
But I have gone through so many different babysitters because you don't trust people. You just don't trust them. You can't find them for the longest time. I mean, just asking, hey, I need to find a babysitter for this. I need to find a babysitter for that. You cannot, there's nobody. You can't find anybody. So, and it's not like, hey, you can just go on to care.com and find somebody. You don't just trust anybody with your kids. So that is a very difficult thing to do. But, as being a spouse, a mom, somebody that is looking for somebody to take care of your kids, you try to find the best you can. And sometimes it's impossible to find. So I know our spouse groups they're very, very open to, hey, if you need something, let me know. You can come drop them off at my house. My kids will play with them, and it's vice versa. So in that spouse group, that is like the great connection that you have if you put yourself out there. If you don't put yourself out there, how are you going to know that that's there? You're not.
Yeah.
So,
and it goes back to that community. If you don't have community, if you don't push yourself to find someone, at least one person who you can
call your emergency contact. That's what we joke about.
Yes, there you go. If you don't have your emergency contacts, then, what are you going to do? Because you can't go through this lifestyle alone. I mean, everyone needs an emergency contact. Like, you can't put down, when you move to California, you can't put down your family back in Buffalo. Because what are they going to do? It takes a day for them to get out there. And not that they wouldn't, drop everything and go. But
sometimes you need somebody. There is, I mean, just for instance, last week, my youngest, she's 3. God bless her. She is a strong-willed child. We have a pool out back. We have a gate. We have this large stone that we hold the gate open with. And, she picked it up. I've told her a million times, don't pick that up. Don't pick it up. Don't pick it up. She picked it up, dropped it on her foot. Emergency room. We had to go because I thought she had a broken toe. I'm calling my husband at work on a Thursday saying, you need to get home. There are times that I know that, one, I would not have been able to get a hold of him.
Right.
I would not have been able to have him come home. And I would have been literally stuck with, who do I call, to take my other child? I would have had to take her to the emergency room. There are instances where that happens. I'm grateful that he was able to come home. He was not flying that day. But that is exactly the reason why you want to have and be part of the military spouse community, because if by chance I really needed somebody, I know that there were 4 other women that I would have been able to call and say, hey, can I drop can I drop my other one off, because I need to take this one to the emergency room. That that is the plus of putting yourself out there in the community.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you don't want to do that and you want to rely on somebody else, that is totally your choice and that is up to you. But I will 1,000 times over say being a part of the spouse community is only going to help you. It's only going to benefit you.
It is. And I feel like there's so many aspects of military life, moving and seeing new places, new adventures, the lifestyle, deployments, everything. But if you don't have that community that you can rely on, then everything else just sucks even more. Deployments are hard. Deployments suck. But if you don't have, people who you can hang out with, people you can, have sleepovers with, or whatever it may be, it's going to be harder. And celebrating those milestones, like my dad deployed and we were, it was Thanksgiving, Christmas time coming up, and we were making Christmas cookies with a friend whose fiance at the time was also deployed because, we were celebrating, we were getting ready to, they were having Christmas. They weren't going to be home for Christmas. And so we were still trying to make it fun, have those cookies, have care packages sent out. And, yes, it sucks. You want to be making cookies with your loved one, but, what are you going to do when that's not possible?
And that's exactly what we're facing this year. Christmas, I got a 3 and a 5-year-old. It's going to be their first deployment and my second, my first with having kids. But, that's exactly it. I know that there are things that we enjoy that I know that if we were to reach out in the community and say, hey, why don't we have a bunch of friends over to do the Christmas cookies or to have an evening where we're watching the Polar Express and having hot cocoa and XYZ. There are people there that they understand because they go through it too. Civilian life, they don't understand it because they don't understand what that type of community is like. You can tell them. And the reason I say this is, because we don't have any family members that are in the military or have been in the military to understand this. So saying it to them, they're like, oh, it's got to be hard. It is difficult. And you explain what happens and they're like, oh my God, I didn't realize that. Yeah, it's
a lifestyle that you have to live to understand. Yeah. Because if you don't figure it out, if you don't have that mindset of, okay, this is hard. If you don't remind yourself that you've been through harder days, you've survived 100% of your worst days, then how are you going to get through the next one? Like, you've been through so much to, give up now. And, it is so hard. That was the hardest thing for me moving to Florida because we are nowhere near a military community. We're 2 hours away from a base. And, you're not around the military community and around people who understand and get the lifestyle. And then, we're an injured family. So you don't see amputees walking around like we did in Texas. And, we understand that and nobody understands that here as much. And so, those factors on top of it, it's just, it's like, oh, you go through that. Oh, we're so sorry. Like, and it's like, no, like, it's not, yes, it's hard. Yes, it sucks, but we don't want a pity party. Like,
no,
we chose this life.
Right. It's, you kind of just, yes, I say this a lot, you figure it out because you do. You don't want the pity from other people. I guess it's more or less just like anybody else. You want to be able to vent or to express yourself about what happened or what's going on.
Right.
But it's not like you're sitting there saying, oh, feel bad for me. I want you to, give me all of this, wisdom and all of this, I'm so sorry this happened to you. We're not looking for that. We're not looking for that. We're just wanting you to understand that, yes, it's a difficult lifestyle. And this is why, one, we have days where we represent these type of people.
Yeah.
We represent, we have Veterans Day, we have Memorial Day, Flag Day is coming up.
Yes.
We totally grasp onto those days for a purpose and for a reason. They're not just for barbecues. Are barbecues a plus? Absolutely. Is it
Yeah.
a great thing that we can pull our community together and have little cookouts and barbecues? Absolutely. But those days are there for a reason. And
Yeah.
we want to be able to, I always am always saying this, that, we fly our flag. We enjoy flying our flag and we'll always fly our flag no matter what. We're proud of our country. I am certainly more than proud of my husband for what he has done and what he's accomplished and what he's doing for our family. Um, we go through difficult spurts. We go through the best of times. We are able to see the world and see the country in ways that some people had never imagined. And
Yeah.
I am extremely grateful for it. But we also have hard days. We also have them. And the better days make up for those really hard days.
Yeah. As long as you choose to look at those better days rather than just constantly looking at those hard days. And I'm bad because I like to constantly just look into the future and go, okay, well, this is coming up and then this is coming up and then what if this happens and what if that happens? But if you're constantly doing that, and if you're constantly looking back and going, oh, well, that sucks. Like, I don't want that to happen again. How do I prevent that from happening again? Like, yeah, you have to find ways to prevent it from happening again. But if you're not, moving, for example, like you could be at a base and just absolutely hate it, not enjoy a single factor about it. But then you go back and you move to the next one and you're like, oh, well, I didn't know that was there. I didn't know that was there. I missed this restaurant, because you didn't enjoy it in the moment and then it's gone. And that's this lifestyle. If you don't enjoy something while you have it, it's going to be gone. And it's like those days where a deployment's coming up, a TDY is coming up. You have to enjoy those moments with your spouse, with your parent before they're gone. And, you're wondering some days if they're going to come home. And, more often than not, they do, but you still never know.
Yeah. I mean, I can tell you, there have been so many, and I hate to say this, but there have been so many moments where I know specifically when we were in Columbus, my husband was a T6 instructor, and it seemed like there was like a 2-year span, and it seemed like there were crash after crash after crash after crash.
Yeah.
And there were some lives that were lost, and of course we obviously knew who they were and prayed for them, and we continue to do so. But I know there was one specific one. I was at work and my boss found out about it before I did. And she didn't tell me because she was like, it would have upset you. It would have, frustrated you. And I knew at that point it didn't affect your husband because it was a different plane that was flying there. But when I went to my phone to, check on lunch break, my husband just said, I'm fine. And that was it. And I was like, what are you talking about? So I'm texting him back, what's going on? And there's no response for like 6 hours. And I'm panicking. I'm like, I don't know what's going on. I, knew that there had been a crash, but they didn't release the plane. They didn't release any of the information. So I'm just like in a full blown sweat panic. What's going on? And then you find out he got home, told me about it. And I'm just like, is this all you can say? Is this all you can do? He's like, yeah, I can just tell you that I'm fine. And then I have to go silent. They don't let us talk.
Yeah. Because you have a blackout period.
Yeah. And it's that I've had now a couple of those, but that was my first one. And I'm telling you, if you don't ever have to go through that, it is a godsend. I never wish that upon anybody. Obviously, the alternative, is, having that bad message come through with somebody knocking on your door, which I don't even want to think about. It upsets me. But those are the things that on a daily basis, you have to think about. That it could happen. I mean, someone on the outside would say, well, that could happen if somebody was in a car crash or, something happened while they were at work or at school, X, Y, Z. Yes, it could absolutely happen. The chances of it happening to us are just a tad bit greater. And it really sucks to have to worry about it all the time. But again, this is the lifestyle, and it is not for everybody. But if you can manage to push yourself to get through it and have a great communication with your spouse or your parent, kudos. It's a great thing to have because, and I can only push that, just have the great communication, and understand that when they send that message, if they're fine, take a deep breath.
That's all you need to know.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's so hard getting those, and especially with the way, I'm a social media person, like that's my degree. I love social media, but it's so frustrating at sometimes too, because, we see all of these, those crashes, those incidences that happen. And, I would hate to be one of the families that find out that way because, the news reports get released and things happen, and it's just, you never know.
And my husband talks about, they will come out and tell them, and then there's all of this speculation. And the last thing they want is the speculation from those squadrons getting out to the spouses, and then the spouses going on social media, because that is the sole purpose of that blackout, is so that we keep quiet, and I know better than to do that, but yes, you still have the media outlets that are posting things and showing things, and you're seeing it on TV, and you're like wondering what's going on fully, because that there's stuff that's not quite being reported. And it, like I said, I have seen firsthand the repercussion of those crashes, and it's heartbreaking. I cannot imagine at all the feeling of having something like that happen, and then there's stuff going out on social media that one is not true, or it's pure speculation, and seeing that, it's awful. It is absolutely awful. I just cannot fathom how those families feel, what they've gone through. And it truly is, I know that I was personally thankful for community at that point, because everybody comes together. Everybody just circles around that family, that person. And, until they truly are okay to move on with life, because that is the only option that you have. You just have to keep moving forward.
Yeah. And that community just, it surrounds you. And I can say, my dad, it's been almost like 12 and a half years since he got injured. And we still have those people around us, who still circle around us and say, like, are you okay? Like, what? And, you come up on those anniversaries, whether it's, a killed in action or an injured in action, like you have those anniversaries, and it's still so hard. And it's hard on those people around you who went through those days with you, and those service members who were right there. And, those people just know, they know those hard days are coming up. They know those struggles are coming up, and they do everything they can to support you through all of it.
Yes, it is. Like I said, it is an awesome community if you take it.
Yes.
If that is not something that you want to be a part of, and you want to try to make it on your own, God bless you, power to you, whatever you got to do to push through. Like I said, being an introvert, I don't like to be around people all of the time. I like to have my moments alone. I know when a lot of those instances happened, it was more or less, yes, I wanted to talk to people and be there. But I also needed a few moments alone. I have this fly, sorry. I have a fly in my house that came in yesterday.
They're so
and
annoying.
It's still here. But yeah, it's, the community is great. You know, and I am extremely grateful for it. It took me a long time to really grasp onto it. And you always have people in that community that are the rotten egg of the whole situation. They don't want to take it, but they also don't want to leave it. They just want to complain about the situations. Complain all you want. The people that are there and really want to help you. Yeah, we complain too, but you have to keep pushing forward. Be that stone that constantly is rolling and grasping onto the change, because if you don't, you're not going to have an easy go at this lifestyle whatsoever.
Yeah, absolutely. And so the last thing I want to ask you, and I kind of think I figured I know where this is going, but what is one piece of advice that you would give to another military spouse?
One piece of advice is to really, I guess, embrace where you're at. In all aspects of that word, embrace. Embrace where your lifestyle is, because it can change. Embrace your children at the age that they're at and the milestones that they go through while you are at a certain area, a certain base. Embrace your marriage, embrace your relationships, embrace the friendships, embrace your community, embrace, the spouses, embrace what your spouse does. Embrace all of it, because someday you're not going to be here. This is just a season of your life. You're not going to be here forever. And someday you're going to look back on it and say, I wish I would have grasped onto that. And you can't go back. Yeah.
Your life just keeps moving. And someday you might be able to go back to, the same duty station. You might have the fortunate opportunity or, misfortune, depending on what base it is.
Right. However you look at it.
But you're never going to get those moments back with your child when they're a year old, or, when it's just you and them and your spouse is deployed, and, those moments, you're never going to get that back. You're never going to get those, anything.
Even being able to take them places. I think about, I know we were talking before we started recording, and, both of my girls were born in Columbus, and my first, though, we took her to Tuscaloosa all the time, for little things, and Birmingham. We did a lot of that. My younger one, we had her during COVID, so everything was kind of at a standstill, shut down. We didn't do as much traveling with her, but now, since we live in California, we've been to Lake Tahoe, which is 2 hours from us. Beautiful. Yeah. Just dropped
bucket list. Yeah.
My husband and I have gone to San Francisco. That's 2 hours away. So much stuff. There's hiking, and just being able to really take your area, and it may not be something that you would have originally thought you would want to do. Go do it. Embrace it, because someday you're not going to be able to.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Well, thank you, Miranda, so much for being on the podcast and sharing so much about military life and what it's like for you.
Thank you, Gracie, for having me. I had a great time.
Yay.
Thank you for listening to Grace of a Military Child and Life podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to give it a like, follow, and comment. Also, be sure to check out Instagram and Facebook at Grace of a Military Child and Life for more awesome content. For information on the podcast, Military Child Bigs and Littles, GoAMCL blog, or other resources, visit www.goamcl.org. You can also email me at Gracie, that's GRACIE, @GOAMCL.org with any questions or comments. To be a guest on the podcast, you can schedule it at www.goamcl.org anchor.fm/schedule a podcast, all one word, or contact me via social media or email. Stay tuned for the next episode where another incredible story is shared.